What the Mum podcast. My name is Maria Newman and I will be your host. Every mum to be knows that as soon as she becomes a mum, her world will change forever. Everyone is keen to give you advice based on their own experiences. Other mums delight in sharing their horror stories so that new mums are better prepared for what might happen. The lack of sleep, feeling exhausted most of the time, living in bodies with even more wobbly bits and never having any privacy. But everyone's story is unique. Everyone's experience is personal. On this podcast, I will be sharing real stories told by mums like you and I about their experience of motherhood and how life changes when you become a mum. This podcast is about showing you that you're not alone. We may not be in the same boat, but we are experiencing a similar storm. I hope these stories will inspire you to do what you want, be who you want to be. Anything is possible if you really want it and if it is really important to you. If you want to find out more about me and who I am, check out my website, mummyinabreak.co.uk. However, for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this podcast episode. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. During this podcast series, I will be interviewing 6 awesome women who will be sharing with us their mum stories. My guest today is Lillian, who helps high-performing entrepreneurs and executives navigate their past losses and failures by turning them into future successes. But she's also a mum who is living a modern life. Thank you for joining me today, Lillian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Most welcome. So, tell us a bit about who you are so we can get a sense of Lillian, the individual.
Yeah, well, you had a beautiful introduction of me. I am a peak performance coach and I'm a mom and I am expecting my second right now. And I'm an entrepreneur. So I live in Los Angeles, California, and timing could not be even more perfect to talk about the subject that we're about to head into, mom life, and this whole journey of having of being a mom. Let's put it that way, right? Because there's so much we could dive into, and there's so many aspects we could look into. So I'll let you lead the way.
So, your story is, well, mine's like traditional in the sense of I got married, I had 2 children, that's it, nothing exciting. But you have had some real experiences that I want you to share with the audience, with our audience. So please tell me your story of becoming a mum and being a mum.
Yeah. So if I could, just take a step back, this is my second relationship. So I've been in a marriage and it didn't work out, but it was a beautiful experience because I learned so much about myself. But what I wanted to highlight with that was I realized I was living a resume life, meaning I walked into marriage and having kids, not because that I wanted to, it's because I had a lot of, you can say, family pressure, social pressure, that I thought and I believed that I should have gotten married before 30 and have a kid and have a good career and have a house, like this American dream, right? And I did. I had my son at 30 and I felt like it was rushing. It didn't feel like I was in harmony. It was like, oh, my time is almost up. My time was almost up. So, so when my marriage broke down, it was the biggest lesson that I had in my life. So, the beautiful thing about it is I got to learn about myself. Me and my ex-husband, we remain amicable, we co-parent. We both learned a lot about ourselves, self-development, right? With like who we are, what we want. And then we have a beautiful son. So at 35, I went through the toughest year of my life because I went into depression. I was like, my mind at the time was, this is everything I thought I was supposed to live for. And I checked everything on the box, but why am I here? So it was a great and beautiful opportunity looking back. During the time, it was hard, but looking back, I got to reflect on like, okay, so what do I want now? Like, actually, who am I? Who is Lillian without being so-and-so's wife, without working for a so-and-so company, without doing XYZ project, right? Or even living in the area. Then who am I? I actually didn't have the answer. And what has started to shift was my belief. I went from I am doomed. I'm 35. I don't know what to do. I'm a single mom who's gonna want to go, like all these negative thinking, into shifting to actually, you know what? I'm still young. You know, there I could still have a beautiful family. Having a family was so important to me too, because I was raised by a single mom and I didn't want to repeat that pattern. So when that happened, I was devastated, right? And fast forward today, after a lot of work of really saying, this is what I want, this is what I love, this is my life, I'm really owning up to that and really tuning out other voice, but really showing up as me for the first time in my life. Right. I am now in a very wonderful relationship. He's a single dad. We've actually known each other for 20 years and went through the same journey. Our sons are the same age. And now we're expecting. So, and my belief has shifted too, because before I feel like I have to get married. I have to get married. Now my whole belief is, we could get married anytime, but what is more important to me is a solid and healthy relationship, a relationship where we have our own happiness and we're not finding happiness from each other. That to me is so much stronger than just, having another wedding and signing a paper. And I'm speaking this because this is my experience and this is what I have learned, because I've also saw myself, the younger me, when I was walking into the marriage and having a kid, even though I had this fairy tale idea, but what I was really looking for is I was looking for something to fill in the hole that I have instead of me filling it myself. So that's my whole journey. And one thing I want to highlight is perspective, right? Because I know a lot of people, they went to divorce and it becomes very bitter and angry and lawsuits and emotions. But if you're able to shift the perspective and focus on your future and what you want, and then one of the things that I really, really wanted, and it still drives me every single day, is my son to be in a happy environment. He still has a great relationship with his dad, with me, with his new modern family, and him to grow up to be a happy kid. And when I'm driven by that, every decision that I make is being driven by that. So I didn't want to go to court and get into this ugly divorce and what like a lot of people hear of. I wanted to do whatever I can to give my son a healthy and happy environment. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. But I learned along the way, right?
And I think that's great, because I think as little girls, we grow up thinking about, we're going to get married and then we'll have some children and we'll live happily ever after. And, we get that from lots of different sources. It's not necessarily just from your family. And like I said at the beginning, that's the route that I've taken. But similar to what you're saying, and hopefully to give you a bit of comfort, my husband has come from a very blended family. And, from my point of view, everything I saw about blended families was from television, where everybody argues and nobody likes each other, and there's anger issues there. But actually, I mean, my husband, he is lovely. It hasn't affected him in the way that media portrays it. And I think that's all about, like you said, the individual and what the individual wants. So if you have a strong sense of self and you know who you are and what you want, you can make your reality what you want it to be. And I think that's amazing that you've used your experience to say, oh, hang on a second, let me make a conscious decision here on what life is going to be like for myself, for my son, for my family, and let me move forward with that, rather than just getting swept along by whatever may happen and reacting to it.
Yeah, responding to it and not react, that's key. That's exactly what you just said. That's a key. And I really encourage anyone that's listening to this, maybe you can relate, to really think from that. It's coming from what would you love and what would you want, and start to respond to that situation. And sometimes it's not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because when the emotions come in and a lot of the memories and maybe some pains and, like I used to always say this, when I signed that marriage till death do us apart, I intended to keep that commitment. So I don't feel like anyone goes into a marriage thinking that it's gonna, it's gonna end up in a divorce. So when it happens, it's devastating. And my self-image, like my self-confidence and all that completely went down. However, when you focus on what you will love and you start to build it up one brick at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time, you're going to feel so good. And you look back, you're like, wow, I went through all of this. And not only that, my kids are happy. And that's what makes me happy. My kids are happy, and that's the most important thing. Right.
So I want to step back a bit, and if it's okay, pick up on going through divorce. What you already talked about, the emotions around it and so on, but from a mum's point of view, what were your thoughts around, how are you going to manage the divorce and raising your son so that he doesn't see it as his fault or something that might negatively influence him as he grows up? What was your thinking, and how did you manage that period of time?
So that period of time was very tough for me. I fell into depression. So my goal every day was to just, get up. That was at one point. And then one thing I didn't mention, 2018, when I was going through the divorce, I didn't even have a place to stay. I was staying at my friend's place, kind of like hopping around. So I was very fortunate to have good friends to take me in, but that's not stable. That's not how you want to raise a kid, right? And I just remember, for any support I could get was as many play dates as possible and really using community. I didn't have family here. So that was hard. And, moving overseas to Asia to be close to my family was not an option, because if I do that, then that means I'm taking the father away from my son. And for someone that grew up without a dad, I know how important it is to have both parents. But really what it was, what helped me a lot was visualizing, using my imagination, and just keep telling myself that this is all temporary. Things are only going to get better from this point. And I would ask myself, what is God teaching me in this? Right. And this is where my mom becomes my biggest inspiration, because she is a single mom and she raised two kids on her own. And we were on government support, and I will say, if she could do it, I could do it. Right. The only difference is, all the dialogue that I would have is I would say, I'm not my mom. I would say that, but this is how I'm going to do it. This is the way I'm going to do it. Right. And I would just start to like educate myself, learn, and take a lot of messy actions. Cause like I said, I wasn't perfect. I made a lot of mistakes, especially at the beginning. Right. Just trying to keep myself together, but also be there for my son. And then maybe I overcompensate because I feel so bad for my son. There is a lot of sense of guilt, not because my marriage didn't work, but because I feel like I broke up a family for him, you know, and really making peace with that and having dialogues with him. I'm a firm believer, and I've read this in the baby book, kids at 1 year old, they already know what's going on. So I've always been pretty open to talk to him about things. If you ask me, I have a question. Um, for me, that's a very big deal, because when I was a kid, when I asked my parents or my mom when they were going through divorce, I didn't even know. I didn't know until sixth grade. And I haven't seen my dad for 5 years. He just said, "Oh, dad's working, dad's working." I never spoke to him and speak to him. And they always say, when I ask them stuff, they always say, and this is probably the old school mentality and maybe my parents' culture, "Oh, you don't understand, you're a kid." But in fact, I knew I would have understood. Right. And because I carried that with me, and I see with all the baby books that I've read, kids are so intelligent and so smart, and they're so observant at 1 year old. It's really to have that communication. And this is something that it's really cute that just happened 2 days ago. My son's 2 years old. I'm sorry, a second grade now. So I pack him lunch, and then I forgot to bring his water bottle. He's like, "Mommy, you forgot to bring my water bottle." And I go, "Oh my gosh, mommy fell. I'm so sorry." And then he goes, "What? Mommy fell?" And he talked about his best friend, his name is Giovanni. He's like, "Giovanni's mom forgot to bring his backpack and his lunch the other day. So you didn't mommy fell." But they have like 5 kids. So
Wow.
But my whole point is having these dialogue with them. It not only makes it humorous, makes us closer, it's almost like I was making a joke, but he was lifting me. He was like, "No, you're not a bad mom. You didn't fail. This is
That's
normal."
so cute.
Yeah, and just these little moments, right? For me, it's making sure that we're connected. And I openly tell him too that I am also learning. I don't know. There's so much I'm learning, and it's so beautiful for kids because when you allow them to talk creatively, they teach me things too. You're very smart.
And I think it's really, really important to let them have their say and for them to see that, we are human. We make mistakes too. We are real. And that way, when they go into, as they go through life and then they become adults, I think they've got realistic expectations as far as it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes things won't go according to plan. And that's not a problem. That's fine because we just learn from it and then we move on.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, I want to share something. The other day, I was so proud of my son. To what you're saying. I think I spilled something. I was like, ah. And then he's like, oh, mommy, it's okay. Just what did you learn? Don't do it again. He said that to me. He was like, who raised you? Not being so hard on yourself. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, when I was raised and maybe our generation with the happily ever after, it felt like, at least from my old paradigm beliefs, it felt like everything had to be perfect. If it's not, then I'm not doing it right. Like if the problem was always me, but it's actually no. There is no such thing as perfect. Actually, everyone's perfect is defined completely different because we have our own point of view. And that's just the way of life and how we flow and how we grow. Right. So, one thing I keep teaching my kids now is like, you're going to fail. Don't even try to not make mistakes, but that's only a lesson for you to learn. You're not a failure. You're just going to experience something that's going to teach you something so you can grow farther.
Mm.
Yeah. And I tell him that too. I was like, mommy fell. I get back up.
But that's good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So you've gone from being married, there's the three of you, to then having to get by with just you being mum and your son. How did that feel? How were you able to deal with that and then obviously continue in life?
With the modern family situation or just me
With
and my
being a single
son?
mum to start with.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting journey. Even just saying that I'm a single mom, right? And one thing that I now, and this is one thing I've learned. When I first embarked that journey, I almost put a new identity on me. And this is a self-reflection. When I was looking at my own identity, when I started to categorize myself with single mom, I started to not like that. I felt like I was helpless. I felt like, people think of single moms, they think about like financial needs. And, at the very beginning, the journey is really, it's all figuring it out. Like I said, I read a lot of self-help books, obviously, because my goal was to get up. I did not intend to stay down. I did not intend to get government support and all that stuff. My goal was to raise up, to get back up, because one thing I always knew, and I would tell myself, and this is for everyone, this is very powerful. Lillian, me at the place of achieving all my goals, how would my family and my kids benefit from this? Immensely, right? From a mindset, from a physical, from a relational, from everything. So, in my journey, the first thing I did was when my marriage was ending towards the end, I really didn't go out because I spent all my energy trying to fix the marriage. So I didn't have much of a social life. I couldn't really perform at work. It was devastating. But the first thing I did was reach out to people, was to allow new people to come into my life and open up that abundance, right? So I'm not in that lack. And then understand that I have old friends that were just on different journeys of life, and that's okay. You know, Surround with more family so I could get any kind of support. And I was in that space of allowing, kind of that letting go and letting God. So when me and my current partner reconnected, it was like we started off as a play date. And everything just slowly happened. You know, we already, I mean, like I said, we already known each other for 20 years. We just haven't seen each other for maybe 15 years. So it was him starting to give me advice because he had went through the divorce already and I was going through it, and being starting with that friendship, and then it just one thing after another slowly went from friendship to the support of me finding a place of my own. Because from I used to, when my mom raised us, we were unstable, we was always moving. I know that's not good for a kid, so being stable was a very important thing. To fast forward to what it is now, but most important thing, I think, what I have learned with myself is not to put myself as a single mom identity. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah.
But to elevate myself, like I would have these affirmations like I'm a self-made woman. I am a wealthy woman. I have it together. Like I was, I'm an amazing mom. Like I would say all this stuff to myself because I didn't like the self-image as, and when I say self-image, I reflect to my mom, right? Not really like, it's like how my mom raised us. And I was like, I'm not going to raise my kids like that. I don't know how, but it's not going to happen like that way. It's going to happen this way. My kids are going to have a better, a great living situation. They are going to be well loved. They're not going to feel neglected, right? And I would fuse my mind with all of that. They're going to have great friends, great parents, great family friends. They're going to grow up feeling so whole. And that's how I feel myself. And that's how I elevated out. So sure, maybe on the status, I'm a single mom. I'm still am because I didn't get remarried. Either we classify each other as domestic partner, but from an identity and a self-image, I don't I put myself as I am a wealthy woman. And I just keep affirming it and live in that energy. Right.
And
I
it is.
fantasize with my son all the time. I was like, you're gonna grow up, you're gonna be successful, and you're gonna be rich. He's like, Mommy, how do you know? We are imagining. Just have fun because kids love imagining. They love imagination. They love drawing. My son loves drawing, so we draw it all out together.
And that's something that we lose, don't we, as adults? We lose that that ability to dream and to know that anything is possible. And it's just through, I don't know, it's just through becoming an adult that people are like, you need to be a realist, you need to do this, you need to do that. Whereas I love what you're doing with your son because you're teaching him to dream all the time and to make those
Dream it all
dreams
up.
become reality.
And if I could add to what you said, so what I've learned is when we grow up, right, I was told to stop daydreaming, be realistic, right? Basically, what happened was all of the adults or the people that raised me and the people around me's belief became my belief.
Yeah.
And that's when I start to form my logic, and that's how you start to form your logic and our thinking and our beliefs, right? Like for me, it was very clear. It was like, go to a good university, get a 9 to 5 job, and you're set for life. I did that. Okay. So,
Yeah,
and that's why I was like, no, 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 no. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was an A student. I checked everything on the box I said.
yeah.
No, because I always look back, when my first time I got married, I knew subconsciously that wasn't the right partner. But I also believed age-wise I had to get married then. However, if I had a different belief of saying that, you're not, and I was only 20, 29 years old. Now I look about it, I was a baby, but at that time, it was like everything in my mind, but if I had thought about life is still so much, I probably gonna live until 100 or 90s. I was, 25, 28. Like there's no need to rush into this and then really allow myself to meet the right person. Everything would have changed, but everything happens for a reason. So
Everything does happen for a reason. And now you are in your second trimester. You're 39 years old.
I am.
So I was 39 when I had my second child as well. And in the UK here, you're labeled, because we like labels, you're labeled an old mum. So there's been a bit of a gap between your first pregnancy and your second pregnancy. How are you feeling? How is being pregnant different?
Oh my gosh, very different. Like I was sharing with you earlier, my pregnancy the second time around is almost a complete experiencing my first one. And you talk about the age. When I first went, I remember my baby was so big. The doctor was like, "Oh, you got age on your side. You're young." And I was 29, 30. And now I'm 39 and I'm high risk. Right. So and this time around, it's just I had my whole first trimester was basically bed rest. I couldn't do anything. Everything amplified. I have headaches. I didn't even know you could have headaches when you're pregnant, but I was having headaches. But now I'm okay now. You know, I'm very looking forward to it. And it's also nice because I have two boys that are 8 years old. They're all looking forward to their little brother. And you know, and I always say the baby is so lucky to have two amazing big brothers that's waiting for him and waiting to play with him and take care of him. So you know, that's the difference, because I feel like, and I really believe it with my kids, I'm gonna have some help.
Yes.
You know, yeah, I mean, they're not going to be the parents, but it'll be nice for them to watch him for 5 minutes while I'm taking a shower or something.
Yeah.
You know, like little
And
things
would you say you feel more confident now that your second child that you're going to have and you're older? Are you more confident about the pregnancy and the birth and having a newborn?
Yeah, I am, in a sense that I know how to take care of it. I think one of the biggest awareness that raised for me is my own self-care in my own health, because I am having it at a later age. So I was thinking about this, you know, by the time my son's 20, I'm going to be 60. And I envision myself to be the mom that he could talk to, that is healthy, that could do things with him. And also to say, you know, for me in 40 to take care of my kid. When I had my first in 30s, I was so energetic. I had all the energy in the world, right? So it's having that mindfulness of now taking care of myself, eating healthy, you know, going on these walks and working out. So I am whole, because when I am whole, I have more energy and I have more love to take care of the little ones. Right. So that's the biggest shift as well. Because I remember when in my last marriage, I was giving everyone all the love I had. I was the only person, the most important person that I should be giving to was myself. And I didn't give that. And that's one of the reasons why I crumbled. So now I'm doing it the opposite. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to take care of myself. So I have all the energy and all the love to share with everyone else. And now we're a foundation together, and then not one or another. So that's the biggest awareness. And that goes for mind, body, and soul, everything.
And that is something that everybody can take away with them for life. You need to make sure that you are okay and your cup is filled and you have energy, because then, like you said, it's a great foundation and everybody benefits from it.
Everybody benefits.
Everybody.
So and also go on.
Go on, Lillian.
I was just gonna say, when you feel good and when you're happy, it's contagious. Everyone around you will be happy. And that's the most important thing I've learned. But if I'm like not happy and I'm grumpy, no one wants to be around me. My husband, my kids, no, they don't. Who wants to be around a grumpy person, right? So that's another thing. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our episode together, but I have two questions for you before we say goodbye. The first one is, what 3 things would you like our listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah. So number 1, when you are thinking about, you know, your life and even parenthood and even from your kids, what would you love and what would you want? Always come from that. These are very powerful questions. When you think about what you love and what you want, coming from here, your source, and not from the outside. You know, it's an inside job. And if you don't know, it's okay. That's what you keep asking yourself and meditating and you know, maybe even praying, whatever that works for you. but to listen from your heart. Because when you could make decisions from this, that there's a sense of peace. And living in a sense of peace gives you joy, like pure joy, right? And it's not like the material things or comparing us to other people. It's living your life to the fullest. That's number one. Number two, I would say self-care. Self-care is so important, for all the parents. We have, marriages and sometimes even parents to take care of, and then we have kids. And it's so easy to let yourself go. It's so easy, especially for moms. If you have more than 2 kids or like 3 kids, I have a friend 3 under 5, yeah. And we always forget to take care of ourselves. But in fact, when we do that, we really set an amazing example for our kids. One thing I know, I have sons, right? I know sons, psychologically, the kids will marry someone that is like their parents. So I knew that the way how I show up with my self-care, self-love, my goal is for them to find someone to share the same value. And they're like that, because like attracts like. Because that's when you're in a healthy relationship. It's healthy when you're happy. You can find it within yourself. You have 2 happy people together, and not someone that's looking for happiness from something else, right? And then I would say that last but not least, for parents, never give up on your own dreams. Never give up on your own dreams. I almost gave up on my dream when I was going through the divorce, because it was a collapse of everything. And I had to take time to find myself back. And I keep asking myself, how would my son, Caleb, benefit from this at me achieving my goals? And that was my fuel. But, my son wants to be a YouTuber. He was just telling me about this when I was taking him to school right now. And create that space so I could also support his dreams, right? So it's really seeing that full picture so everything could be in harmony together. What I have saw a lot of parents that go through depression because they feel like they had to give up on their own dreams. That I went through that with my last marriage, to be honest, but that's a whole other story. And that's where the resentment comes in and you're not happy. But never give up on your own dreams, and just keep it very focused and create a plan for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love how, for the 3 things that you've talked about, it very much is starting from us as an individual rather than worrying about what's going on in there. Well, our viewers and our listeners will be going, Lillian, she's amazing. I need to know how I can get more of her expertise. Make it easy for them, and tell us how we can connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. It's Lillian Victoria Official. That's the easiest way. I also have a Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/Awesomest Lifestyle Official. So I'll send you the link. You could drop it on the page if it's easier.
Yeah. It'll be in the description. Amazing. Well, thank you again, Lillian, for talking to us today. And thank you
so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast episode. And if you did, then of course, please share it with other mums. I have lots more resources for you that will help you on your journey through life. Just visit my website to access them, which is mummyonabreak.co.uk. You can also find out details about my book, Busy. Take care and see you the next time.